Welcome. You are listening to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I am Alison Price, and I'm here with my co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hi, Alison. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Mars in Virgo. This is going to be part of our transit series, and we're going to be looking at only a few of the transits that occur, but certainly those superior planet transits. So Mars is first up, and it's going into Virgo, so we're going to have a closer look at that.
Excellent. Sounds good.
So first of all, let's just talk a little bit about what Mars represents.
Sure. Well, it in the birth chart, for sure, it's your drive, course of action, your what motivates you. It's like the Martian qualities associated with Aries and fire and drive and action and what makes you motivated to act.
Yeah.
So obviously, whatever sign it's in would be the characteristics of how you are active in the world.
That's right.
Yeah.
I always look at Mars as being what gets you off the couch.
There you go.
Because if you're just sitting there and they're saying, do you want to do this now? Do you want to do that now? Do you want to do this? Oh, yeah. And that, whatever gets you off the couch, that tends to be what your Mars represents, and probably in the sign it's in too as well.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
It's one of those planets that I think is well to do with heat and friction and breaking a sweat. So.
Yeah, for sure. And also, it's one of the planets, Mars and Venus, being, how you are in relationships or how you are to the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on who you're trying to be attractive for or attracted to. Attractive for would be the Venus side, and then who you're attracted to and how you are attractive is...
represented by that Mars, yeah.
Totally.
I sometimes think too that it kind of looks like it. To me, the Mars is the chase, as it were. But when you've actually got your prey, you're not always sure what to do with it. So, but Mars is the chase. Get you off the couch. Oh, let's go and do that sort of thing. Or let's go and, I don't know, cycle the seawall or something.
Yes, exactly.
So to me, Mars is that planet that where we are active, and depending where it is in your chart, and by sign and house, it's going to show, where you're going to make a move, literally, and where you're going to break a sweat in your life.
Absolutely, yeah. And that house placement is super important because that definitely shows like where it's expressed in your life.
Yes. Yeah. And we're actually talking about this at this time of the year because Mars is going to go into Virgo shortly. That will be on July the 10th, 2023. So if you're listening to this in the future, that's also okay. But then we've had a quick look then at Mars. Mm-hmm. Let's have a quick look at Virgo. What is that sign representing? Would you say?
Well, actually, right before we do that, let's say how long it does stay in the sign. So approximately 6 weeks it stays in each sign.
Right.
So it's going into Virgo, and it'll be there this time around So this time around, Mars is going to be in Virgo from July 10th to August 27th.
Yeah.
And that's about 6 weeks. It's always in whatever sign for about 6 weeks. Mm. And it goes back into whatever sign every 2 years. So it's been about 2 years since it was in Virgo last time, and it'll be about 2 years again.
Yeah. So it's a planet that takes about 2 years to get round. Yeah. And so it's one of those, to me, it's one of those planets that if you've got some project you want to do within a 2 year period, such as, I don't know, organize a wedding or build a house, this is kind of the one of these time frames that you could use on that 2 year cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's one of the personal planets for relationships. It's very important to look at your Venus and Mars placements and to, where they are in each other's charts and things like that. But it's also like among the most important for your personality.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of those personal planets. You're very aware of it, and you can tap into it, I think. Yeah,
for sure. You really feel it in your chart. Like when someone describes where your Mars is, an astrologer tells you this is where your Mars is. You're like, usually, wow, yeah, that sounds like me.
That explains it.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see what Virgo is all about. Yeah. I think we're both eminently qualified to to speak on this.
No, why would you say that? Maybe you can share with us why we're eminently qualified.
I have Sun, Moon, and Mercury all in Virgo.
Yes.
Mostly conjunct, wide conjunction in some cases, but yeah, they're right, all clustered there in
so a 3-planet Virgo, yes.
Yeah, very Virgo, as they say.
Very Virgo, as they say, yes.
And you?
Yes, I too. I have to raise my hand to 3 planets in Virgo. I've got Pluto, Mars and Venus. And that's why I particularly wanted to discuss this Mars going through Virgo, because lo and behold, not only is it just going to transit and cross over and make conjunctions, but I will be getting a Mars return, which is kind of interesting thing as well.
Yep, definitely.
So Virgo.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, my brother, he's a 5-planet Virgo.
What?
I know. And if anyone epitomizes Virgo, it's him. But we'll move on. So we do know these people in our lives who've got Virgo, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So some like keywords for Virgo, would you say?
Oh, analytical, meticulous, organized, nitpicky. Critical.
We like to say discerning. I think that's the right way of saying they're picky.
Yes.
Would you say you're picky, discerning, or?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think I definitely choose, maybe it comes with age or whatever. I'm certainly not picky about everything.
Right.
And maybe it's also because I have like 3 planets in Libra. I don't mind letting other people choose certain things.
Right.
Like, I'm one of those annoying people who, when asked what I want for dinner, I'm like, I don't know, what do you want? I could have this or that. My most annoying thing is when my boyfriend asks what I want for dinner, I'll say, I can't decide. Give me 3 options. I know, I'm terrible. It's an awful thing. But yeah, so I'm certainly picky about some things. I'm like, yeah, anything but no green peppers. I can be very wishy-washy or easygoing about some things, but then other things, it's like, no, that is a deal breaker.
You got a hard no on some things. I think food is a thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I think I draw the line more textural food
texturally,
things.
yes.
Green peppers are waxy and just not.
They're not your thing.
No, flavor does not overcome the texture for me. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of textural issues with food for me. But at the same time, I'm willing to try like anything once.
Yes. But then with the sun and moon in Virgo, you've got your needs and wants are pretty much in alignment with being particular level.
Yeah.
And another keyword is, of course, modest. So there's that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what is it? It's an earth sign. It's a mutable sign, and it's got that double. What do they call it? Bicorporeal. It's got the double. People in the symbol.
Okay.
The idea is it's the Virgin, but she's actually pregnant. So there's 2 people in the Virgo.
Fertility, but also absolutely.
They're the maid and the
keeper of the hearth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's of course, Virgo is the Virgin and all that, but you know. Yeah,
but also associated with, I believe, the High Priestess in the Tarot deck. Not to jump topics, but that's an interesting one because it's associated with High Priestess class in mythology and this sort of powerful, maybe virginal in the sense of like nuns and priestesses
and
who were
and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Back then, it wasn't you were a virgin by choice in only like you could only have that option if you were to marry God or go into some sort of seclusion because otherwise there was no birth control. Like you were either the empress with the motherly whatever or the high priestess and you chose a life of service and no sex or whatever. And this is the Virgo ranting on about sex.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's turn our microscopes onto Mars going through Virgo because it's going to affect both of our charts. And so could you share with us some themes that you see unfolding at this time?
Well, first, I'm going to quote good old Stephen Arroyo, our favorite.
We love him.
A classic. So he says, people with Mars in Virgo, they search themselves modestly, hopefully, analytically, dutifully, and sometimes with petty criticism. So this is the expression of it in a person. Decisiveness, initiative, and method of operation are colored by perfectionism and fine discrimination. Strong actions can be hindered by self-criticism and over-attentiveness to details. And an underlying need to serve influences their physical energy and willpower. And they have a need to strive towards perfection in order to achieve their desires. So that is their motivating burning desire is to achieve perfection and to vigorously work towards practical goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is like in contrast to, say, someone with Mars and Leo, where maybe their drive is to assert themselves on the stage, to be appreciated, to be glorified, to be seen, toiling away in silence for the man. Is maybe a Virgo could be perfectly happy, or Mars and Virgo would be happy doing that. Mars and Leo, not so much. They want to be appreciated, seen, recognized for their efforts.
Sure.
Just as a
And just for the record, where is your Mars? Could you?
Oh yeah, mine is in Taurus. Which
Yes.
Yeah, I like to think of that as the Ferdinand the Bull placement. The it's not the most overachieving Mars at all, but boy, is it steady and reliable when it puts its mind to something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think what you've just said, what Arroyo host just said there is, I do resonate with that with the Mars in Virgo myself. It's the striving to perfection, although it's more perfection within myself than looking around me. I'm not going to be saying, hey, your hem's hanging out or something.
Yeah, it's not like to be the best necessarily.
No.
It's to be the best you can be at something, to master that thing for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to constantly edit. I think that is something that happens all the time.
Absolutely. And for all these years that I've known you,
This
is all very resonant as I look around your beautiful apartment with these lovely watercolors and all of your wonderful little projects, and just it's this little microcosm of all these wonderful things that you have sort of perfected in these small compartments of you've got
thank you. And
podcasting and
that is something
and the astrology and the art, and it's all absolutely. The Virgo is into, as you once said, so wonderful. Like the miniature things that I have this thing about, like little miniature kits of stationary things or little miniature tool sets or like let me loose in a dollar store and I will gravitate towards these tiny little travel kits of makeup brushes or this Virgo
it's like
thing.
my watercolors. It's a traveling set. I think there's 8 colors in it because I couldn't deal with a great big thing.
Yeah.
And even the art that I do is small.
Yeah.
It's A4 or less than, and big things just don't do it for me. I'm not into sloshing paint around in those areas.
Well,
but
it's so messy.
Yeah. Yes. But the small, minute, and even the artist trading card thing.
Yeah.
We're getting off tangent here, but that micro, I like art that you can do in a day.
Yeah.
And therefore it's got to be small and so on.
Yeah. And as an artist, I really appreciate the idea of having just, I don't have Mars in Virgo, but just as with another expression of Virgo, is having a set of, like a topic, first of all, which is why I love to do calendars. I have 12, that's a defined number, and now I have to just fill in the spaces. I have to find 12 things that complement each other but are enough variety and organize them, and not everything in the same color scheme. I've got to sort of, but if you don't have some lines to draw within, then I hate that.
You're not to like what they call ad hoc, what they call it when they improv or something.
No,
So
improv.
This is great because I know when we do our prep for our podcast that you always do some really decent research on these things and pull things together for our quotes and what have you. Could you tell me which do you know which book it was of Stephen Arroyo's that you were quoting from there?
It was the chart handbook, the chart interpretation handbook.
Okay, perfect. I'll put a link to that below because we do like.
And that's a wonderful book for beginners as well.
Okay.
Just a really good, just a really broad overview of every sign every planet in every sign.
Great.
And then
a cookbook, sort of.
Yeah, a cookbook, precisely.
Yeah, there's quite a few. The Mars book I have is from Donna Fantone.
Yeah.
And it's written quite a long time ago, but it's still solid astrology. I mean,
sure.
The astrology came to 2,000 years ago. We were still talking about Mars in Virgo, weren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of 2,000 years ago, that's an interesting segue, because one of the sort of recurring themes, and as you know, one of my interests in astrology is sort of the research side of it, and finding these broad patterns in history. And, I like to look at what different celebrities or different historical figures have the same placement, and then sort of compare them and see, what are the great themes or different. Obviously, Mars moves very quickly, so it's not really one of those where you look at it a generational kind of way. But interestingly, some really famous military strategists have had Mars in Virgo.
Okay.
So one of those themes that kind of comes up when you look at Mars in Virgo is this military strategy. So Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Napoleon, and General George Patton all had Mars in Virgo.
Really?
Yeah. And if you think about it, I mean, Mars obviously is about action and, it's named after the god of war and all these things. But Virgo, strategy and planning and details. And so to be a military strategist, not just, to charge into war and blah, 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 but to actually be able to move troops and to master your opponent in this incredibly strategic and consequential way.
Yes.
Yeah. That is a certain type of skill.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And it's across all, history, obviously.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great.
On
down. Yeah. And interestingly, the first time I remember hearing this was when Barack Obama was first president, and he has Mars in Virgo, but so did George W. Bush. So it's not always great military strategists, but there is, possibly an interesting dynamic there where Mars in Virgo is good at war,
planning things.
Planning
it's
war.
True.
Yeah.
It's when I was a young warthog, years ago, I worked in a planning department in Johannesburg, and we planned every step of the way. Critical path planning, it was called critical path planning. It's still a method of working things out, and I relished this thing once I got the hang of it.
Yeah.
But even now, when I'm trying to get my thoughts together, because I've got multiple things on the go, I start off with a note, and then if the idea warrants, I might put it on a cue card, and then if I flesh it out further and it still warrants attention, it will then get into one of my main journals, and then ultimately, if it really warrants my attention, it will get its own journal itself. So I have this pecking order. Talk about making lists and checking it twice, but I have this method of bringing thoughts and ideas together. I don't just write them all down. They're just they have a pecking order.
Yeah.
I've got a pecking order.
So it's not just a mob. It's like you've got troops, you've got platoons,
Yes, I suppose so. And only those who are worthy will actually get to be written in the nice book rather than on the scratch pad.
And maybe one day they'll actually go to battle. Those good ideas.
And this comes also in the morning, like when I've got a dream journal where I try and capture what I'm dreaming about, and sometimes I can, tiger running or whatever. But that then may percolate further in the day and develop into something else and get onto a post-it note. Yeah. And then it's on its kind of journey, but not all survive. So.
I'm picturing how a bill becomes a law, schoolhouse rock thing from my childhood, which may or may not resonate with any of our audience members who are of a certain age.
No.
Yeah.
So this Mars in Virgo, because it's going to transit your chart, it's going to come across your Mercury. Yeah. So we are assuming you're going to be, I don't want to say running your mouth off, but you're going to be having conversations, perhaps interviews, discussions, yes, meetings, all of those sort of things, because that's the Mercury thing.
Yeah, we can only hope.
We can only hope. And then, of course, it's going to come across your sun and energize you. And I can only assume you're out and about.
It's summer.
On your bicycle and your rollerblades, and you're playing hockey and whatnot.
Absolutely. Yep. Disc golf and all those things.
Yeah. And then thirdly, it's going to cross over your moon and stimulate your... How do you feel about all of this? Yeah. So you can have some reflection there and dig deeper, make deeper contacts there with your mom and your female lineage going back,
Sounds like it's going to be a great active
It's going to be a busy, busy time from the July 10th to August the 27th. Yeah. For you. Yeah. So, lots to look forward to there. It sounds, absolutely. I think it should be a productive time. Yeah. And of course it's going through, as we know, your 10th house, so there's quite a lot going on there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So who knows, maybe there'll be 3 things on the go at once because of the 3 planets there.
Sounds awesome.
I know.
I can't wait. Sounds wonderful. And what about you? What house is it going through for you?
3rd.
So awesome.
Yeah. So because my Mars is in Virgo, it's actually going to cross over and bring me a Mars return. Yeah. So that will then recalibrate the natal Mars aspects and all the rest of it. And but the thing is that way back, I believe it was in 2002, there was a Mars retrograded through Virgo. So I had a triple Mars return 1 year. And that was the year that I began my blog, I began my website. And during that whole period when it spent about 5 months in that retrograde cycle. And that was when I established most of the information that's actually on my blog, because I had the structure there.
Yeah.
And I know I had the kids, and we went over to the library because I decided I'm going to teach this. I'm going to do courses now, because people kept asking me.
Yeah.
And I never thought about doing it before. And we went over to the library one afternoon because they had some school project, and they're all running riot in this library. And I'm sitting there, and I fleshed out all my courses that afternoon, the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced, with all my titles, knowing just the headings.
Yeah.
First I'm going to teach this, then that, then the next thing, and this, that, and the other, and what I wanted to include, what I didn't want to include.
It's amazing.
So that was during a triple Mars return. So it actually energized me, because Mars in Virgo is pretty, I think, placid.
Yeah.
Because I don't really often get worked up about things, except when you tell me we've got to pull a episode. But it was a time when looking back, it was the most productive time I can recall, when I actually got things established that would do. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. You know?
Yeah, and in the third house and all the communication stuff, that's amazing.
All the teaching. It suddenly occurred to me to pull it all together, because people were asking for classes, and I thought, really, me, little old me? But yes, and once I laid it all out. And this is the establishment of all the classes I've taught in the last 20 odd years, and that book,
That's awesome.
the whole thing. But it was because it was the triple Mars return.
Yeah.
So this year I'm only getting a single Mars return.
Yeah.
So I'll take it.
Yeah.
And that will come, I think, for me on the, did I write the date? Yeah, August the 1st.
Nice.
I shall, who knows? I'll let you know how that unfolds. But,
Absolutely.
Who knows what we'll be doing by then.
That's amazing. So what we're saying is that this is a really great time to take advantage of this extra boost. It's like if anyone out there, is the cross section of astrology enthusiast and a video game enthusiast, you'll know what the power up that like the power boost that you get in certain video games when you leap onto like a certain coin or what have you in different games. You get the power boost.
Mario or something.
Yeah, it's temporary though. So you have to use it. You have to pounce on it and use that boost when it comes into your chart.
So with Mars, Mars's transits, as it's coming through Virgo, and it's going to connect with your chart and make conjunctions to these planets and to mine, it's probably going to be about a week where it's actually stimulating each of your 3 planets, and there'll be some combination between the 2 when it's definitely the Mercury-Sun thing.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of energy period that it will start to come in, it will make the exact, and then it will start to fade as well. So you can look at it 3 to 4 days to a week where your chart will get stimulated in these areas. So this should be a good thing.
For sure. So any planets that our audience members have in Virgo, that's what to expect, is about a week activation kind of.
Energizing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Heating up, friction.
Yeah. And I mean, if you have one of the outer planets, for example, in Virgo, it's going to be a little bit longer, but it's also more of a generational thing as well.
Sure.
So everyone of your age group, if you have, let's say, Saturn or anything Pluto, outside.
Hit the Pluto.
In Virgo.
Yeah. So that's about the time frame. So it's not a day, but it's not really that. You don't want to miss it. I want to say these opportunities, and if you know your chart, you need to look ahead and see which week is Mars going to trigger your chart, and pay attention and get ready, be poised for action. Yeah. Have your running shoes at the ready and get out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And pushing one of my favorite websites, astro.com.
Yeah.
It's always a really good way of, you can put in your information free, and you can find out what when these transits are actually going to be hitting without dishing out a lot of money or whatever. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Mars actually enters Virgo, it's going to virtually immediately make an opposition to Saturn. Saturn is at 6 Pisces, so that's going to be quite a challenging aspects.
Yeah.
I always refer to the use of the malefics, and they say you shouldn't say that anymore, but I still do. And they're the bad boys. They really are.
Yeah. So that could make things a little more challenging to get whatever you're trying to achieve. It might become a little more difficult, a little slower, maybe hitting up against bureaucracy of some sort.
Stonewalling.
Yeah. But it's just more effort might be needed, and then you'd have a sort of a more lasting effect.
Yes, if you did put the effort in, you probably would achieve more ultimately. Yeah. But again, that will be passing through 3, 4, 5 days in aspect.
Yeah.
And then later on in the month, later on as Mars is going through Virgo around August 21st, it's going to not only, it's forming a kite, it's going to oppose Neptune and then trine Pluto and Uranus, which are both sextiling to Neptune. So it's forming a kite there.
Yeah.
And these are, that is a huge major aspect pattern.
Yeah, it's actually, the chart of it is actually quite lovely. It forms a very symmetrical and kind of beautiful pattern. But I definitely would keep an eye on that date, August 21st.
Yeah. It's going to, we don't have time to go through that kind, but it's certainly a strong thing. And again, as Mars passes through, it will be in place probably for a week at tops.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting if you have a baby born that day, that will be built baked into their chart.
Very powerful.
So aspect. Kites are always fun things. But so that's about it really for Mars as it's going through Virgo.
Yeah. So one of the things I always like to do when I look at different placements is to see who that we know of, who in history or who in the celebrity world has these placements. And Mars in Virgo is an interesting one for some famous men. So we look at these actors and we kind of go, what do they have in common? So Mars in Virgo is shared by Benedict Cumberbatch,
really,
Hugh Jackman, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck, Robert Downey Jr., Johnny Depp, and Will Smith.
Wow.
And what's interesting to me is that these are kind of like, they've all done action movies. But they're kind of like the thinking man's action hero, right? I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch, obviously, like Doctor Strange, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Like these are sort of brooding Sherlock, exactly, like these very thoughtful sort of, and Robert Downey Jr. obviously as Iron Man. Iron Man, exactly. So that's an interesting one. And Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, I mean, where they started out as screenwriters. Yes. So their acting career started out with writing Good Will Hunting, which was, I can't imagine a more Mars and Virgo sort of, it's like you're overpowering with your intellect, like this blazing intellect that wins the day over like the room full of jocks or the bar full of hooligans or what have you. Yeah, so that's a little Mars and Virgo image there too.
That's great. It gives a bit of something to think about, right? Yeah. Okay. So now Arwynne, then. So for our listeners who don't have Mars in Virgo, what's a good way to use this energy, do you think?
I mean, any kind of analytical thinking, anything around details, any kind of projects that you've maybe been putting off because like there's just so many factors or so many little components that would go into it, might be a good time to tackle those. Yeah. A new health regime, anything to do with like your diet or health, your well-being, your physical, corporeal health. Yes. Go to the doctor if you've been putting off a doctor visit, things like that. Yeah. Because obviously Virgo is oriented towards health and wellness.
Yes.
Yeah, and diet.
Yeah, those are some great tips.
Fix up your resume.
Always polish your resume. You never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Arwynne, so it's been great having you here to discuss Mars in Virgo. It's always a pleasure. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me. This is great.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there, or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.